Good afternoon and evening, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. Again, it looks like our numbers are a little bit scarce today, but I'm hoping that more people will be jumping in, coming in a little bit later. So I hope all is going well. Yesterday was a pretty easy class, well, hopefully for most of you, in which we talked about strings and how to use strings, how to combine strings through string interpolation and string concatenation, how to loop through the characters inside of a given string. And that was about it. So I know that you guys had the Is Palindrome homework project last night, and hopefully that went well for all of you. But if you do have any specific questions or concerns with the homework, feel free to reach out to me or to your project manager, and we will be happy to help. Okay? So today we're going to be talking about collections, which has two sets of data types that we haven't covered yet. Those being arrays and dictionaries. Those are two types of collections that we use in iOS programming. Okay, so arrays and dictionaries, and we will talk about those pretty deeply today. For those of you, I don't know if you all saw the message from Karen Zachary, but she's just reaching out if people are looking to enroll in the full-time course and you still need an interview and whatnot, feel free to reach out to her and she can set up those interview times and whatnot. For those of you who are still on the fence about whether to do Lambda School, remember that the great part about Lambda School is kind of threefold, right? So one, it's all online. Number two, you don't have to pay a dime for it until you actually get a full-time job as an engineer, making $50,000 or more, right? Which is pretty awesome because a lot of schools you have to pay up front, and Lambda you get to do it afterwards. So you get to make sure that the education that you receive, it's actually paying off before you pay for it, right? And then the third part, which I don't think I've really covered, is how great the instructors are. And I don't say that because I'm one of the instructors, because I'm actually not one of the instructors for the full-time course. But the instructors that are over the full-time course are amazing. So Andrew Matson is kind of the lead instructor, and he has done a lot of really awesome things with iOS. And there's also Spencer Curtis, he was actually one of my teachers when I went to a code camp, and so he taught me a lot while I was going to a boot camp, and he's awesome. He does a great job teaching. So those are kind of the three competitive advantages of Lambda School, being online, being able to pay after, and then the instructors are awesome. And then there are plenty more advantages, but those are the three main ones that I like to bring up. So if you are interested in the full-time course, please apply online or reach out to Karen Zachary, who can help you with that, or if you have any questions and whatnot, okay? So let's go ahead and let's get into today's lesson, because we have a lot to cover concerning our collections. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen with you all here. And then, like always, let's get started by opening up a new playground in Xcode. Okay, so file new playground for me. And we're going to be doing a blank template here. And let's call this collections. Okay. So we'll create this, and let me change my font for you so that you can all see. Presentation large, and let me turn off my notifications so those don't get in the way of our lesson today. All right, let's go ahead, make this full screen. Okay. All right, so today, like I said, we are going to be talking about collections, okay? And these include what are called arrays and dictionaries. Okay, and I'm going to cover them in that order. Okay, so let's talk about arrays first. So up to this point in this course, we've been dealing with properties that contain a single value, right? So we have, variable name equals Johnny, right? And that's just one single value. Well, collections are what we use to store multiple values inside of a property, okay? And collections are used in every single app, right? Because we're never going to have an application that just has one property with one value. Most of the time we're working with a collection that has multiple values, right? I work for a journaling app, and so you have an array of all these different entries, and then inside of those entries are different photos. So we have an array of all of the photos that they contain, right? So arrays and dictionaries are essential in programming because we're always going to be working with more than one value, okay? So how do we create an array? Well, let's go ahead, and we're going to create an array literal, is what it's called, and so we're hard coding this array into our program. But let's go ahead and just set up an array here and say variable array equals, and then in order to construct an array value, we start out with a bracket, just a square bracket, okay, and then we can begin putting in values. So I could go ahead and put 1, 2, and 3, and these are all comma separated. And then to complete our array, we end it with a closing bracket, okay? So this is an example of an array. This is an array of integers, and it holds 3 values, 1, 2, and 3, right? Okay, so a few things to note with arrays. Arrays are always ordered, okay? So whenever I call my array object, the items inside of my array are always going to be in the same order. And we'll talk about why this is important a little bit later. Okay, another thing to note with arrays is that they need to contain all of the same type, right? So in this case, my array here is 1, 2, it contains a 1, a 2, and a 3, right, which are all integers. If I try to put something weird in there, then we can see that it's like, okay, well, I guess this is an array of type any. But that's not really safe code, right? We don't want an array that stores anything that we want it to, right? We want to make sure that our arrays are clean and that they only store the specific type that we want to use, right? That makes it so that our code stays safe, okay? So this is how we create an array. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. And if we want to check what type our array is, remember that we can always option click on our property name, and we can see that this is an array of integers. Okay, it's an array of integers. Okay, so let's create another array here. Let's say variable names array is equal to, we can do Johnny, do Nellie, do Oliver, do Andrew, Caleb, right? Okay, so this is an array of strings, right? Because each of the values inside of our array is a string, okay? And I can double check that by option clicking on names array, and we can see that it is of type string. Now, as we did with properties, sometimes we want to type annotate our code, meaning that we want to explicitly state what type this is, right? And so the way that we do this is the same. After our initial naming of our property, we put a colon, and then for the type, instead of just doing type string, we need to do of type an array of strings, right? So same thing here, just do an open bracket, then the type of the values inside of your array, and then a closing bracket, okay? So this is how I type annotate my names array with an array of strings. Okay, so that is how we create these arrays. Now we're going to use a specific array a few times throughout today's lesson, so make sure it's a good one and make sure that you follow along. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create an array of our favorite foods, okay? So make sure that we set this as a variable, and this is important if we're ever wanting to like insert anything into our array or remove anything from an array. We need to make sure that our array is a variable, right? So that it is changeable, it's mutable, okay? So I'm gonna say variable favorite foods is equal to, okay? And then just for practice, I'm gonna say of type string, right? Is equal to, let's say I really like pizza, I like ice cream, I like brownies, I like tacos, I like omelets, omelets. I don't know if I spelled that right. And let's say cheeseburgers. Okay, so this is an array of all of my favorite foods. Okay, so how do we access these values outside of our array? Right? What if I want to just see what is my absolute favorite food? And we're going to say that this is an ordered list, right? And this is an order of my favorite food to my least favorite food. Okay, but they're all my favorite foods. So one way that we can access items from an array is something called subscript syntax. Okay, and so the way that we do this is I'm going to say let favorite food, my absolute favorite food, right? So let favorite food equal, and then I'm going to call my favorite foods array, okay? But then I'm going to use something called subscript syntax to retrieve a value, okay? And so before I get into the subscript syntax, let's talk a little bit about arrays and these elements in here, okay? So another important thing to remember with arrays and with these collections is that arrays are zero indexed. Okay, they are zero indexed, which means that they start at index 0. Okay, so if I were to go in and I'm looking at these items in my array, well, I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items inside of this array. Okay, but if I zero index it, it means that I start at the number 0. So pizza, the way that I'm going to count these is actually 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Pizza starting at 0 and cheeseburgers at 5, okay? And so remember that, because that's something that's really important with these arrays, is that even though I have 6 items in my favorite foods array, the highest index inside of it, if I'm using subscript syntax, is the number 5, right? So it's always one less than the count of your items. And so that's what zero indexing is, okay? So if I wanted to access my favorite food outside of this array, the way that we use subscript syntax is I do an open bracket, okay? And then I'm going to put the number of the index that I want to access. In this case, I want to access whatever item is at index 0, which is pizza, right? So now if we go ahead and we test this and print out my favorite food, then we should see that it prints out pizza. Once my playgrounds catch up. I seem to run into this every day. I feel like my playground just gets really slow. So that you guys don't have to wait, let me just relaunch here. Okay, let's open this up here. And stop it, make sure that my compiler configuration is set to manual. And console here, and let's run our code. And we should see it print out pizza, okay? So again, we use subscript syntax and we accessed the value found at index 0, okay? So remember, index is just kind of a placeholder number for a location inside of our array, okay? So index 0 is the first item in the array, okay? Let me open up my notes here so we can stay on track. Oops. Okay. So All right, so that is subscript syntax. Okay, and so now we know how to access these values from the array. So let's say, for example, oh, I've got 6 elements inside of here. I want to access what's at item 6. Okay, well, if we try to run the code, you'll see fatal error index is out of range. Okay, so remember, whenever we're using subscript syntax, we need to make sure that we select a value that is within the index range of our array, right? In this case, 6 is outside of our range, right? Because I have 6 elements, but the index only goes up to 5, okay? So again, if I access element 5, well, then we'll see that that accesses cheeseburgers, okay? So now that we know that, let's talk about how we can modify an array, okay? So we need to make sure, first off, that our array is a variable, which will make it so that it's mutable, so that we can add and we can remove items from it, okay? And so the way that we can add elements is through something called subscript notation, okay? Subscript notation. So let's say that I want to add a new favorite food to my array here. Well, let me create a new favorite food. So let's say let new fav equal steak. Really like steak, okay? So what I can do now is I can say favorite foods. I can call my favorite foods array. And I could do one of two things, right? Is I can add and say, okay, so the index, oh, let's see here. Favorite foods dot insert, okay? So what we do to insert an element into an array is we do favorite foods dot insert, okay? And then it's saying, okay, what element do you want to insert into your array? Well, I want it to be my new fav, right? And then it's saying, where do you want to insert this? Where in our ordered list do you want to put this, okay? So I could put at index 0 if I want to make it my absolute new favorite food, right? So then I could print out favorite foods here. And just for good measure, let's print it up here so that we can see the difference, okay? So we'll see that in our first case, my favorite food is pizza, right? But then using this insert function, I can add an element at a specific index, okay? So at 0. So this is how we insert elements into an array, okay? But how do we modify these elements? Let's say that instead of steak, I want it to be chicken, okay? So what I can do is I can say favorite foods and then access the specific, using subscript notation, access whatever index I'm wanting to modify, which in this case I want to access steak, and we'll say is equal to chicken, okay? And let's print out favorite foods, okay? So we'll run this again, and we should see that steak now has been modified to be chicken, okay? So we use subscript syntax to, one, access a specific element inside of our array, and we can use it to modify an element inside of our array, right? So in this case, we're just accessing the value at index 0 and resetting its value to chicken, okay? So I talked about inserting, so let's do another example of that. So let's create a new array. Let's say I'm the owner of a zoo, okay? And inside of my zoo, I've got some animals, right? Let's say that I have a lion, I have an elephant, I have a zebra, and I have an anaconda, okay? So let's say that I got a new animal, a new shipment, okay? And my new animal, I actually got a rhino for my zoo, okay? But now I want to add this new animal to my zoo array, okay? So what I can do here is I can say zoo array dot insert, and then I want to insert the new animal And I can say, if I want to put it in a specific place, I can. If I say like I had numbered cages and I want them to be in order of their cages, and I want the rhino to be in cage number 1, or I want it to be the first cage, then I would say at 0, right? Or what I could do is I could insert it at the end of the array and say, okay, insert this at index 5, right? Is that right or is that wrong? Well, let's see if it works. Let's run it. Oh, okay, so that's out of range. So remember, it needs to be index 4, right? Because index 4 would be the next index in my array, right? Because right now it goes up to 3. So if I wanted to insert it at the end of my collection or of my array here, I would just need to do the next index number, okay? Well, it turns out this is something that's pretty common in programming, that we maybe don't care to insert the element at a specific place in our array, but we do want to add it to the array. Okay, and so Apple's been really nice, and they've provided a method on array types for us that's called append. Okay, so append just means put it at the end of the array. And it turns out that this is actually a lot safer because we don't have to worry about the count of the elements in our array, right? We can just append to whatever is already in it. Okay, so in this case, I want to append my new animal here. And then let's print it out. Print zoo array. Okay, and so we should see rhino here at the end, which indeed it is. Okay, so those are the two ways that we can insert elements into an array. We can do it at a specific index, or we can use this awesome append method that will just put it right at the end of our collection. Okay. All right, so with that said, let's talk about how to remove items from an array, okay? So let's say I've got an array of pets, okay? And we'll say that, and this is true, I have chickens, okay? So let's say I've got chicken 1. I actually have 3 chickens. Chicken 2, chicken 3. They don't have names because I don't really view them as pets. So we haven't given them names, okay? And then I do have a dog, and his name is Stark, okay? So I've got this array of pets. Well, let's say that a cat got into our chicken coop, and he took away some of our chickens, okay? So how can we remove these items from this array, okay? Well, in order to remove items from an array, we have to know the index of the item, and we have to remove it from a specific index, okay? So let me show you. We're going to need to create a property that's going to be an index, okay? And so I'm going to say let index equal, and then we're going to do pets array dot index of, and then it's saying the index of what? And then it's requiring a string, right? Well, let's say that this cat that got into the chicken coop, he took away chicken number 1, okay? So I want to find the index of chicken 1, okay? And you'll find that this is really useful because most of the time arrays aren't just gonna have 4 values. They could have hundreds or thousands of values. So it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick to find this index by using pets array dot index of, and then using the string, okay? So now what I can do is I can say pets array dot remove, and now it's saying remove at integer, which our index is an integer value, right? So I can say remove at index, okay? Well, let's see if that's all that I need. Oh, okay. So we see here that the value of my index here is actually optional, okay? Can anybody briefly tell me why index would be optional? I didn't declare it as optional, right? But why would index be optional in this case? Okay, yeah, so because I'm just putting in a string value here, the compiler's not going to know yet if there's actually a value at that index, right? Because what if I put like chicken 5 here? Well, in this case, index isn't going to exist, right? It's going to be nil because there's nothing at index chicken 5, right? So that's why this is optional, okay? So what I need to do then is we would need to unwrap it, right? And I can do that by saying if let index is equal to, let's do chicken 1 here. Then let's go ahead and remove that item from our array, okay? Remove at index, and then we'll see that warning go away. And let's print out my pets array here. And we should see that chicken 1 is gone, okay? So chicken 1 is gone. So remember that with these indexes or indices, right? That it's going to be an optional value. Okay, so we need to unwrap it, right? If I tap on index, if I wasn't unwrapping it, right, then it would probably say index is optional. Okay, so that is how we remove at a specific index. Okay, and so remember, this is one way to unwrap. Another way that we can unwrap if we're inside of a class is we can do something that's called guardlet, and I could say guardlet index equal pets array dot index of chicken 2, and then I could say else return, right? So unwrap it. If not, then return from the function, right? But we're not inside of a function, so I can't use that here. But those are the two ways to unwrap things. Okay. So if let index equals pets array index of chicken 1. Okay. So again, we could say another cat got in and took away chicken 2. Okay. So we're going to say if let index is equal, let's do like index for chicken 2 is equal to pets array dot index of chicken 2. Okay, then pets array dot remove at my index for chicken 2, and we should run this and we should see that chicken 2 is gone. Okay, so that is how we remove items from specific items from an array. Okay. So we actually have a few more methods that Apple has provided on these array types to remove things from arrays, okay? And let me show you a couple of them. So if I do pets array, you can see that we have a remove all, okay? So that just removes everything from the array, okay? We also have remove last, which would remove the last item in an array, and then remove first, which would remove the first item in an array, okay? So those are nice if you know that you only need to remove a first value or last value or remove everything. You don't have to create an index, right? Because it's automatically going to grab either the first or the last to remove everything. Okay. So how can we check to see if an array contains a specific item? Okay. Well, it turns out there's actually another cool method here called contains. Okay, so let's say I want to see if my pets array contains a specific element. Okay, so chicken 1. Okay, and so remember this contains, this is going to be returning a bool value, right? If I option click on the method, we can see that it's a function that returns a bool. Okay, so what I can do is I can say if my pets array contains chicken 1, print out, we still have chicken 1, okay? Otherwise, else, print, I think the cat ate him, or her, right? I think the cat ate her. So then I can run the code, and we can see that we do still have chicken 1, okay? So contains is another little nifty tool to allow us to see if something exists inside of an array. And again, this is it's kind of silly in this example, but if you were using a collection that had thousands of elements, you know, this contains function is actually really useful. Okay, so now let's talk about how to iterate through an array. Okay, iterating through an array. So we know that one way that we can iterate through things is in a for loop, right? So a for loop will actually loop through each element inside of an array. Okay, so let's say that I've got an array here of friends. And we'll say that we've got Chris, Ken, Justin, Aaron, and Anna. Okay, so I've got this array of friends. And I want to create an application that will go through each of my friends and say hi to them or something like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and say for friend in my friends array. Let's print hi. And string interpolation, right? We can put in our friend property there. Hi, friend. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, and then we can see that we got hi, Chris, hi, Ken, hi, Justin, Aaron, Anna. Okay, and this is where you use for loops most often, is looping through elements inside of an array. It's really awesome because then you can perform these functions on each of these items really quickly, right? So let's say that I want to, just trying to think, we're running pretty low on time. Okay, so yeah, we've talked about for loops a lot, so I'll go ahead and stop there. And let's get into a challenge. Okay, I'm going to give you a challenge so that we can all practice what we've learned thus far with arrays. Okay, so here is your challenge. Right over here. Okay, so I want you to write a function that takes an array of strings along with a given string and returns an integer indicating the number of times the passed-in string appears in the array. Okay. So we're going to have two parameters, right? We're going to have an array of strings. We're going to have another parameter that's just a string. And then we want to return an integer that tells us how many times that string occurs inside of the array of strings. Okay? So go ahead and take 3 minutes to do that. All right, take another minute or so. Okay, so the question is right here. You're going to write a function that takes an array of strings along with a string and returns an integer indicating the number of times the passed-in string appears in the array. Okay, or if I'm confusing you by this, let's say that we have I want you to create a function that takes in an array of names and then also takes in a name and then prints out or returns the number of times a given name occurs inside of that array. Okay. Alrighty, let's go through this together. So remember, we're creating a function here, so we're going to do func, and then let's say we're taking a count of our names, right? Or a count of a given string inside of an array of strings, okay? To make it easier, I'll just say a count of names, right? So we're going to bring in the number of times a name occurs in an array of names, okay? So this is going to be of type string. Okay, we're going to pass in a name, and we're also going to pass in an array of names, right? In names, an array of type string, okay? And then remember that we want to take account of how many times that occurs. Well, I need to create a property that's going to hold my count, right? So let's go ahead and say variable count of names, and we're going to set it equal to 0 initially here. Okay, and then we're going to do a for loop, okay? I should probably create an array here to make it a little bit easier to see. So let's say that I've got a group of variable names equals, so we've got Steve, we've got John, we've got Waz, we have another Steve, we have a Jonathan, we've got another John, Stephanie. Okay, so now that we've got this, we're going to say for name, okay, in, well, just so that we don't get confused with this parameter, right? Remember, I'm making a new property name, so let's go ahead and say for matching name in names, okay, and we're passing in this names here, right? So I'm going to loop through everything inside of that names array. If the name that I pass in, right, so the name here, if my name property that I'm passing in is equal to my matching name, then we want to increase the count of names by 1, okay? And then when all is said and done, we're going to print out our count of names, okay? So let's go ahead then, and let's call our function count of, and let's see how many times the name John occurs inside of my names array. Print this, and we see that John is in my array 2 times, okay? And let's go verify that John, yep, it's in there twice. Okay, what if I put in the name Steve? Okay, we'll run this, and we see that Steve also occurs twice, which is right. Okay, so that is how we can loop through different elements inside of an array, right? And then we use our conditionals to check to see if the name that we pass in is matching, or how many times it matches inside of an array, okay? All right, so let's move on to dictionaries. We've got about 20 minutes to cover these dictionaries. So let me clear this code out here. All right, so we're talking about dictionaries. Okay, so dictionaries. Here's a few things to know about dictionaries and their difference from array. Dictionaries are not ordered, okay? So if I were to print out my dictionary in one place and then print it out another, there is not a guarantee that those items inside of the dictionary are going to be in the same place. And because of this, we are not able to use indexing to access elements from a dictionary. Okay, we can't insert at a specific index. We can't remove from a specific index because dictionaries are unordered. Okay, dictionaries also contain what we call key value pairs. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by creating a dictionary here. Okay, let's say that I've got a dictionary that contains the ages of all of my friends. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say I'm going to have this be a variable though. Let ages by name be equal to, okay? And then like we did with arrays, these are going to be surrounded in these brackets here. But I'm going to put a key. So my key here is was, and the value is 67. Okay, so this right here is one value inside of my dictionary. Okay, so if you think about it, let's pull up dictionary here. And let's look up a word, age. Okay, so if we look at a dictionary, we see that age here is a key, right? And then all of these different definitions are going to be values inside of that dictionary, right? So that's how dictionaries work in programming as well, right? Is that we can look values up by their keys. Okay, so I can look up age and I can see that it has definitions. Well, in this case, was is my key, and the value of was is 67 years old, right? And that's what kind of dictionary I have. So if we option click here on ages by name, that you'll see that this is a dictionary of type string for my keys and integers for my values. Okay, so let's keep adding to this. So let's say Steve Jobs, 63. Grace Hopper, 112. And Susan Kerr, 64, right? Okay, so here I have a dictionary of my different friends and their ages, okay? So remember that these are not ordered, that if I were to print out ages by name in different places of my app, there's no guarantee that these are going to be in the same order, okay? So although a dictionary is ordered alphabetically, right, dictionaries in programming aren't necessarily ordered, okay? So how do we add type annotation to this? Well, the same as we've done for arrays, right? And for our other data types. If I do colon here and then do an open bracket, and this is a dictionary of the keys are strings, right? And the values are integers, okay? So that is how we add a type annotation to my property, okay? So this is a dictionary of string int, okay? So how do we access specific objects in our dictionary, right? So if we don't have an index and the items aren't ordered, how can we access elements? Well, just like we would as we're looking through a dictionary, we access these elements by using the key, right? So let's say, for example, that I want to access the age of Steve Jobs, okay? So let's say let Steve Jobs age equal, and then I'm going to select my ages by name dictionary, and I want to find the value of whatever is at key Steve Jobs, okay? So then if I print out Steve Jobs age, we'll see an error, right? And that's just because this is saying that it's an optional, right? So again, just like we talked about with arrays, it's possible that a key doesn't exist. What if I put Alexander Hamilton, right? Well, Alexander Hamilton doesn't exist inside of my dictionary, okay? So this age here would have to be optional. So again, we can do if let Steve Jobs age, and then look it up by his key, which is Steve Jobs. And if that's not nil, then we want to print Steve Jobs' age. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that, and we'll see that we get 63. Okay, so that is how we can access elements from our dictionary, by using the key. Okay, so let's talk now about how we can insert items into a dictionary. Okay. But before I talk about that, actually, I want to talk about how we can modify elements inside of a dictionary. Okay. So what we can do in this case, say that Steve Wozniak just had a birthday and he turned 68 years old. Okay, so I need to update my dictionary. Okay, so I'm going to call my dictionary ages by name, and using something similar to subscript notation, right, is I'm going to put an open bracket and I'm going to put whatever key I want to access, which in this case is Woz. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, go into my dictionary, look for the key Woz. Okay, and reset the value to 68. Okay. So now if I print out ages by name, let's do Woz here. Oh, turn off this. Let's just go down here. Let's just print out my entire dictionary. Okay, print ages by name. We'll see that Woz is now equal to 68, right? So this is how we can modify elements inside of our dictionary. Instead of using the index, we use the key to access the element, and then we can reassign its value, okay? All right, so now I want to talk about inserting items, okay? So let's say that I've got a dictionary here for animal types, okay, and it's going to be of type string, string. And let's say that I've got a cat, and its animal type is feline. Say that I have a lion, whose animal type is also feline. Say that I have a dog, whose animal type is canine. And I've got a frog, whose animal type is amphibian. Okay? So I've got this dictionary of different animal types. Well, let's say that I want to add a new animal type to my dictionary. Okay? So what I can do is I can call my animal types dictionary, and just like we did to modify a value in a given dictionary, if I actually give a brand new key, then this will just automatically add that key to my dictionary. Okay? So if I say gorilla here is equal to primate, well, it's going to go through and it's going to say, okay, do we have any keys that are called gorilla? Nope, we don't. So let's go ahead and add that to the dictionary. Okay, so now if I print out my animal types dictionary, we should see that we now have gorillas, gorilla, primate. Okay, so that's how you can insert items into a dictionary, is by giving it a new key and a new value. Okay, but you know, if I do access something that already exists, if this was lion and I said lion was primate, well, it's going to go through and it's going to say, oh, we do have a lion key. I'm going to reassign its value to primate, which would make sense, right? So we'll keep this at gorilla. Okay. So how can we remove items from these dictionaries? Okay. Well, we can see here that if I go to my animal types here, there's actually this remove, okay? And so I can remove a value for a key, right? So if I remove my frog, okay, then we can go ahead and print out my animal types. We should see that frog is no longer inside of our dictionary, okay? There's no more frog. So we remove a value at a given key, okay? So that is how we can remove values. We can also assign values to nil, okay? So I could say animal types, cat is equal to nil, okay? Cat doesn't have a value, and if it doesn't have a value, then it's going to remove the entire item from my dictionary, right? So if I print out animal types, we'll see that cat is no longer in there because I set the value of cat to nil, which by default removes it from the dictionary, okay? All right, so last thing that I want to cover is how we can loop through items inside of a dictionary, okay? So let's say that I've got a dictionary here of number of wheels, okay? Number of wheels for a type of vehicle, okay? So we know that this is going to be, our keys are going to be strings, right? Because we're going to throw in the type of vehicle, so string. And we want to return the number of wheels, which is going to be an integer, okay? And let's say that I have a, well, let's just start here. We'll say unicycle, and its value is 1, okay? I have a bicycle, which has a value of 2. Let's say I have a tricycle, has a value of 3. And let's say I have a car, which has a value of 4. And I have a semi, which has a value of, I don't know, like 24 tires or something crazy like that. Okay, so let's say that I now want to print out my keys and my values, okay? So I want to loop through each of these and I want to print out each of my keys and each of my values, okay? So let's go ahead and let's say for, okay? And in the past, we've just done something like this, right? For a number in, and then in a specific array, okay? With dictionaries, it's a little bit different. So we need to say for, and then I can give each of these a name. I could say for vehicle, which is the key, and then say wheels, which is the number of wheels, okay? In my number of wheels dictionary, let's go ahead and print out, I have a type of vehicle, right? And it has how many wheels? Okay, so we're going to use string interpolation to throw in the number of wheels. Wheels. Okay, so let's go ahead and print this out. And we can see that I have a tricycle and it has 3 wheels. I have a unicycle, it has 1 wheel. I have a car and it has 4 wheels. I have a bicycle and it has 2 wheels, right? So we can loop through the items or the elements inside of a dictionary by using the for loop, but we just need to be sure to include the key and the value, right? If we need to use them, we might not even need to use them, but if you need to use them, then here where you're declaring your property names for your loop, you need to include the key and the value, okay? And those names can be whatever you want them to be. Okay, so for the last couple of minutes, I want each of you to go back to your favorite foods dictionary. Okay, mine's probably way gone. Go to your favorite foods dictionary, and I want you to do a few things with it. Okay. Oh, your favorite foods array. For our final challenge, I want you to add an item to the end of favorite foods. Okay. Remove an item in the middle of your favorite foods array. And then I want you to loop through the array, printing out one of my favorite foods is favorite food, right? Okay, So go ahead and take 3 minutes to create, to modify your array in this manner. Okay, so add an item, remove an item, loop through and print out that string that says one of my favorite foods is so-and-so, okay? And then while you're working on that, somebody asked how we remove values from a dictionary, okay? So let's say let name, what do I want to do? Vehicles equal reduce car or semi 16, 24, or whatever, right? 24. Okay, so I can take vehicles and I can remove value for a specific key. So if I wanted to remove the value for the key car, I could go ahead and I can print out vehicles here. And we should see that car is no longer inside of our dictionary. This also needs to be a variable if I want to change it. Okay, so we just have semi. All right, let's go ahead and run through it, okay? And I should have been creating my array of favorite foods. So we got pizza, got chicken, got ice cream, got tacos, salad, something crazy like that. Okay, so first off, we want to add an item to my end of favorite foods. Okay, so remember to add, we can do, to add to the end of an array, we can do array.append, and let's add steak here, okay? Steak. Okay, so now if I print out my array here, we should see that now steak is at the end, okay? Now we want to remove an item in the middle of our array, okay? So remember, when we want to remove an item, if it's not the first or the last, we need to find the index first, right? So let's go ahead and let's say let index of salad, so I don't want salad to be on there, equal array dot index for given string, right? Index, where is it? Array dot index. Oh, sorry, index of, not index for. Okay, so we want to do the index of salad. Okay, and then I want to take my array and I want to remove at my index of salad. So get out of here, salad. And we want to print out our array. Oh, darn it. Sorry, I need to unwrap this. So we're going to do if let, right? So if something exists at that given array, then remove it. Okay, hit play here. And we see that salad has been removed from my array. Okay, and last thing we want to do is loop through the array, printing out one of my favorite foods is. Okay, so let's go ahead and say for food in array, print one of my favorite foods is, and using string interpolation, we want to pass in our food, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and run the code. And we see one of my favorite foods is pizza, chicken, ice cream, tacos, and steak. Okay, and then one of you asked what the loop looks like for dictionaries again. I don't even know. Do I still have it? Oh, I don't have it anymore. Does anybody still have access to that looping through that dictionary? Where's my dictionary? Okay, we'll do it really quick. Okay, for vehicle wheels in vehicles dictionary, print I have a vehicle and it has wheels, right? You can run this. I have a semi and it has 24 wheels. Okay. All right, guys. Where am I? Stop the share. Okay, guys. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about custom data types. I've posted your homework in Zoom chat as well as Slack. Be sure to fill out your daily stand-up form as soon as you finish your homework, just so that we can get a feel of how you guys are doing and how you're feeling about the content that we've been learning. But yes, 2 more days of class. Tomorrow, custom data types. Thursday is going to be table views. You won't want to miss them, because they are amazing and essential for iOS programming. Okay, so we'll plan on seeing all of you tomorrow evening at the same time as always. And until then, best of luck.